right. Hello.
Hi, Nara.
I'm Margaret. So I'm Nara, newcomer, and
I'm Margaret Corby.
And we're here at the Salina Public Library in Salina, Kansas, doing an oral history for MOUG, the Music OCLC Users Group, on Friday the 24th, sorry.
That's okay.
The 24th of November in 2017. So thank you, Margaret.
Thank you, Nara.
So we'll just go ahead and get started with some of these questions. We have some questions to ask, and then I can ask any follow-ups kind of as we go along.
That'd be great.
So, Margaret, could you tell us about your current position, your title, and where you work?
Okay. I am currently working at Kansas State University, and I am a metadata librarian, and I have been there since January of 2005.
Okay. And so is this the same or a different position from when you first became involved in MOUG?
This is actually my third professional job that I have had. I started out in 1991 at the University of North Florida in Jacksonville, Florida. And when I started on that job, my title was music cataloger. So that's all I got to do was music cataloging, and I really liked that job. Mm-hmm. Eventually, though, I felt I wanted to get a little closer to home. So in 2005, I moved to Knoxville, Tennessee, where I worked at the University of Tennessee in Knoxville. And I was a music cataloger and music reference librarian for about 4.5 years. And I really liked that, too. It's a really nice opportunity to get to work in a music library because you're with the faculty and the students, and your door is just right there, and they can just come by and get help or ask questions or whatever. So that was a really good experience as well. And then in 2005, I had the opportunity to get a job at Kansas State University, and even though I don't get to catalog as much music, it still involves a good amount of music, and I'm still able to do my NACO work and everything. So it's been a good move for me.
Good.
So
okay. Can you tell us about your MOUG activities and involvement?
Yeah. I actually joined MOUG in 1990, and I started as a student when I was at the Indiana University, and I was doing my teaching was with Ralph Papakian and Sue Stanchu, and they said, you really have to join MOUG. It's a great organization, and there'll be a lot of opportunities for training and things. So I joined then, and during my time with MOUG, I had the opportunity to be on the program committee at least once, and then I was a continuing education coordinator from 2000 to 2002. And that was a lot of fun. I mean, it was a lot of work, but it was also a lot of fun getting to do the registration and take care of the programs and work with everybody on the committee. So I enjoyed that a lot. I think that's pretty much my involvement. I've done quite a few presentations. I did a lightning round recently on Mark Edit, but I've also helped out with, especially we've had the joint meetings with OLAC, and I've done some sound recording, score training for like the beginning score cataloging. So I've done that as well.
Did you attend your first MOUG meeting back in 1990, or do you remember which meeting?
I think I did, because I think actually my very first MOUG meeting would have been in 1991, which was in Indianapolis, and I was a student then, so at Bloomington, so we just drove down the road, and I got to do that. I stayed in a room with 3 other ladies, and it was just, we had a lot of fun at that meeting. Very cold meeting, but a lot of fun.
Yeah, well, Bloomington in the winter, or Indianapolis, you said. Yeah, it's pretty cool.
That was a cold winter. So.
Yeah. Well, you already kind of talked about who or what drew you to MOUG. It sounds like Ralph and Sue said to you, this is something you should do, and so.
Yeah, and it's definitely been well worth the investment and time and everything. I've really enjoyed my time with MOUG, and I've learned so much with all of the workshops and the training and everything that they have offered. It's been really a great organization. So.
Yeah. You talk about what changes you've seen in MOUG over the years? Or just tell us about what MOUG was like in the 90s.
Well,
whichever's easier.
I think one of the biggest changes has been, I've been going through boxes of paperwork recently. I had an entire box of nothing but MOUG handouts from workshops and things, so I think that's probably one of the biggest changes, is that back in the in the 90s, and probably up even till about 2000, very paper oriented. We got lots and lots of handouts, and I had all these just reams and reams of paper that from all these workshops and things that I've been attending. I'm afraid to say I didn't keep most of them. They went into the recycling, but at the time they were so useful, and I really referred to them a lot as a new cataloger, and not having quite the resources that we do today, so you'd refer back to your notes and go through them meticulously and look for that. So that's probably one of the biggest changes, is just the amount of paper that we used, and also just that, the changes with our cataloging rules and our tools. I worked back on the days when we had dedicated terminals. So I started out with those, and then we eventually went to OCLC Passport, and then eventually we're on Connection. And I understand there's a new tool coming down the road in a few more years. So, that means that in my lifetime I'll have tried at least 4 different tools. So that's a big change.
Yeah, so also thinking about that, MOUG the listserv is a thing now, I know. Were you around when it came to be?
I was one of, I don't remember exactly what year MOUG started around, but I'm pretty sure I signed up for it as soon as I could, because it's always been a great resource for your questions and seeing what other people are doing and everything. So it's hard to believe that we got along without it for as long as we did.
Yeah, it made me think of that because you were talking about the handouts and how you had to refer to them because it wasn't as easy to ask people their questions.
And I think that's exactly right. Now we have such a wealth of knowledge that we can, rely on. If you're dealing with something really complicated, you can just put a question out there and usually get a response back pretty quickly, which is fantastic.
Pretty amazing, actually, how fast it happens. What's your favorite MOUG memory?
Well, I joined the Music NACO project, I can't remember for sure what year. I think it was maybe around 93 or 94, early 90s. And I was still at the University of North Florida, and I had the opportunity to go on sabbatical while I was on UNF, and I did my sabbatical at the Library of Congress. And what that meant was that I worked for them for free and got paid through UNF, and then I actually went up to Washington, D.C., and I found a place to live, and that was only 4 blocks from the Library of Congress. So I got to stay up there, and I went in every day to the Library of Congress and worked and created original cataloging records for scores and did just a ton of authority work. One of my reviewers or mentors was Phil DeSellum, and at the end of the project I asked him, I need to be independent on my authority work. Am I independent? And Phil just looks at me and says, "You're independent." So that's all there was to it. But he'd been reviewing all of my authority records really closely for those entire 4 months, and I literally did hundreds of authority records. So I fit the criteria, as far as the numbers go, but it was great.
Is that basically where you got your NACO training, was working with him in person there, or did you work on it before?
I worked on it before as well. Sue Stanchu was one of my reviewers, and she did that beforehand, and she would have continued to be my reviewer, except for I was doing the sabbatical there, and so it was just easier to have Phil do all my review while I was there.
Have you continued your NACO involvement?
I have. I did a lot of NACO work at the University of Tennessee when I was music cataloging there. I'm afraid it's fallen a little behind since I've been at K-State, but it's one of my goals is to get that back up to speed and be a regular contributor again.
When you were at the Library of Congress, were you working on a specific collection, or
no, just a little bit of everything. It was some of their newer acquisitions, but I still had the opportunity to see some of the classics. They took me down to the vault, and I got to see an original Mozart and an original Brahms score. That was pretty cool. So.
Oh, and you mentioned that you served as the continuing education coordinator, but I also know that you were in charge of the very last edition of the Best of MOUG.
I was. I'm afraid I can't think of the woman's name who I took over from, but she gave me all of her paperwork and told me about the process, and it was about 10 years out of date at that time, and so it doesn't seem to take long, but I spent a lot of time just going through the authority files and looking up our major composers and updating every authority up to date at that time. So it was a really big project, and we sold out of every single edition that we had, and every now and then I still get requests for it, and I'm like, it's out of print at this time, but it was a good experience as well, and I hope people have found it to be a useful tool.
I remember when I first joined MOUG, it was around the time that you were working on that project. And so that was sort of the initial thing that I associated with you as the person who gets up and talks
great.
about
The best
Best
of
of MOUG
MOUG.
at every single meeting.
Yeah, that was definitely an interesting project.
Yeah.
So.
Was there anything else you'd like to share with us about MOUG or about your experiences?
I just think MOUG is a great organization, and I really hope that it continues into the future and that our new and upcoming catalogers find as much usefulness out of the tools and the workshops as I have.
Okay. Thank you, Margaret.
All right, thank you, Nara. It's been great.